Hey, good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I'm your host. I have a spectacular guest on. Dr. Robb Kelly will be joining us, and you want to hear this guy's story. Trust me, and you need to share this out immediately with all your friends, all your family. Get everybody on here. Let's listen to Dr. Robb's story. Stay with us. We'll be right back. And we are back. Let me bring Dr. Robb on. Dr. Robb, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ken, thank you so much. Hey, guys, on Facebook Live. Good to see you. Going to be a great show.
I started this show almost 5 years ago, and it was probably for very selfish reasons. Honestly, I was really stuck in this one area of my life, and I thought, you know what? If I just interview enough people and hear their stories of how they got unstuck, it'll help me. And magically it has helped me. So that's what this is about, man, is just, telling people how you got through the crap in life. So start with where you were born and raised. You sound like you have like maybe a deep Southern Texas accent.
East Texas. I was born in East Texas. No, I'm only joking, guys. I was born in Manchester in England. There's a famous football team over there. You know, the game where you kick. Oh, I'm not going to get into that.
Right.
Go Cowboys. Oops, I've upset a lot of people there. So I was born in Manchester, England. I was raised there in a low-income family. My mom was a house cleaner, and my dad worked for a gas company, used to dig the roads in the holes. So not a lot of money around, but a lot of love around. They were good times. You know, I grew up with a guitar in my hand because I was in a musical family. So at the age of 3, they bought me my first guitar, and I started to play, around the house. And eventually, as we'll go on later on, became a musician at Abbey Road Studios in London.
Wow. So we have that in common as well. I started playing guitar at 7.
Yes. So I always have guitars, and somewhere my office is half studio, half office. It's crazy.
That's awesome, man. It's so awesome. So growing up, you had a great childhood.
I had an okay childhood. It was happy, not a lot of money. You know, at school, for instance, I couldn't go on trips to the local park camping because, family couldn't afford it. You know, stuff like that, which later on, when I worked through my trauma, realized that wasn't too good, really. There's a lot of trauma, childhood trauma there for me that, increased my disease and my behavior going into my adult life. But fond memories, a lot of fond memories as a child growing up.
Sure.
Mom and dad stayed together, never got divorced, so I come from a solid family, very tight. So yeah, it was very, very good. I was very happy with it. I know now, but didn't know then. There's a lot of things in my childhood that I was uncomfortable with. I was uncomfortable living on the projects. I was uncomfortable people seeing where I lived at school. So, for instance, when one of the guys at school or kids said, "Hey, look, my dad's going to pick us up tonight. We're going to play football. Do you want to come?" I'd go, "Yeah. Oh, we'll come and pick you up." Well, I was horrified. So I gave him an address probably a mile away to where the houses were mortgaged, the posh houses, we call them. Yep. And they picked us up at 6, and at 5:30, I'd run to the house and I'd stand outside this gate till the car come pick me up, and we went. The only problem is when they dropped me off again, because it was dark, they had to wait until I knocked on the door, which I kept waving and they kept waiting, and it was just embarrassing for me. So there's little things like that I picked up. But it was good. It was good.
But you said you lived in the project.
Yeah.
Wow.
I come from absolutely nothing. And when I say that, like I say, family was loving. They did the best. Everything was great. But no, I grew up very poor.
Sure.
My first guitar was I think it was £27 all them years ago, which was a lot of money, really. But my dad couldn't afford that. My uncle Peter, who was the musician in our family, who I later played with at the age of 9 on stage professionally, I had to lend my dad the money, and Dad would pay it off every week. It was kind of that kind of household.
So did you, and I don't know how it is in the UK, did you go to college, university? What do they call it there?
They call it university. Yeah, I went. Well, you've got to remember. When I get to this in a second, I have the alcoholic brain, which differs from the normal brain. There's 3 parts of the brain that differ. Okay, so when I keep saying I have the alcoholic brain, it means I'm going to either do something or I'm not going to do it. We don't. I've never played basketball. I've been in the US for 15. Never played. Why? Because I know I'm not going to be good at it. I want to be good at something, or I don't touch it. So I went to Oxford University, which is one of the most prestigious universities in the world. Maybe.
Sure.
So yeah, and the way I got that was, the way alcoholic minds work. I wiggled and got in the right place with the right people at the right time, pretending to be this kid that was, not rich but doing well for himself. And every night I'd go back to the projects and sleep in this house that was government paid.
Wow. As you were going to Oxford.
Well, I've later come out that house, but what happened is I knew I wanted to better myself. So at the age of 9, I was on a stage with my auntie and uncle as a trio, playing the clubs and pubs. And I remember Liverpool. We played at Liverpool, and it was a huge audience, and I kind of froze a little bit. And my uncle gave me a beer, and that is where at 9:22 in Liverpool, England, I took my first drink of alcohol.
At what age?
The age of 9.
9. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's when you shed all your fears and inhibitions and
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It was like the first half of the day of the set was so nerve-wracking for me. I come off and my uncle said, "Here, drink this." So I drank it, and it was a little beer like this, and I went on. I thought I was Chuck Berry. Oh my God, I thought I was the best. I was playing bass. That's my main instrument. Best bass player in the world, man. And it was just phenomenal. And I come off, and I knew right there and then, you probably have this feeling on stage, Ken, when you come off and you go, that is what I want to be. And this is what I want to drink to make sure I do that. It was crazy. And because obviously alcohol became my best friend after that.
Wow. God, I can so relate to that.
Right.
And I was around 8 or 9 as well. I tell people by the time I was 13, I was a full-blown alcoholic, and they don't believe it. And I'm like, no, I really was. I was blacking out like every time I drank.
Wow.
So let's back up a little bit. In high school, did you, and I only ask this because in high school, for me, I felt so insecure, so out of place, that I did stuff that got me in trouble. Like I got in trouble. And did you experience any of that?
Not really. I was I was the music guy. I was always in the music room playing, and I had a couple of close friends, but I only got in trouble once, and freaked out. The truant officer had to come around and speak to my parents, and they knew that I'd never missed school, and it was something silly that's one of the teachers said. But no, I kind of hid in music, but I didn't have any confidence. And I'll tell you now, Ken, you may be able to rate to this, you may not. I spoke at a conference with Gary Brecker and the big motivator guy, I can't remember what his name is, Tony Robbins, a couple of weeks ago. And wow. I was so nervous going on stage because I am nervous whenever I do anything. I'm nervous before this show. But what happens is as soon as the event starts, I kill it every time. So my nervousness goes back to what I used to do. I hope you're going to love this, Ken, is as soon as I put a guitar on, the nerves went. I was somebody else in front of this guitar. Now take that guitar off, and I was a Mr. Nobody. And that's how I felt most of my life.
Let me ask you this. I've said, I've said this before that I feel like alcoholics, sometimes we think we have, the market cornered on being insecure. Do you feel like do you feel like other people though that are not alcoholics or addicts go through some of the same things?
Here's what it gets interesting. So we've done a lot of research, obviously over 30 years at what we do. That's why we're the best in the world. What happens is, I think everybody gets nervous.
Yeah.
Certain events. But what I think alcoholics are born, drug addicts are made. Got to put that straight out there, which will freak a few people out. I'm glad you understand that. But what he does, I think alcoholics, it enhances that nerves because of the childhood trauma. So when we look at childhood trauma, we go, well, I had trauma in my life. I saw a plane crash. That's not what alcoholics and drug addicts go through. I just call them addicts. Trauma isn't a car crash. It isn't a divorce. This was my trauma for years and years. Robert, get down off that sofa and never ask again to go to college because you're too stupid. Boom. That killed me most of my life. So normal people, me and my brother were stood on the kitchen table once and my mom walked in. And he said, well, this is what she said, okay? Well, you get down off that table before your dad gets in. Get down, you idiots, get down. My brother jumps off and I freeze. The reason I freeze is what I've heard, get down off that table. And that's the difference. We just hear things different.
Yeah.
We feel, we're very emotional. You can hurt our feelings within a second, even though we stand strong, look powerful. I've worked with rock stars, movie stars, everybody you can mention of government. I mean, everybody, I've worked with them. I stood next to one of the highest paying performers in the world before we pushed him on stage and he was crying because he was so nervous. And this guy was so experienced that, he gets paid $1 million an hour or something when he's on stage. It's phenomenal. So I know it exists, but their lying was trauma and addiction behind that guy as well. So I think it's exasperated, definitely.
Yeah. Wow. That was a great explanation. So you go to Oxford University, which is just mind blowing, from the projects to Oxford. That's crazy. And you said you were going home every night to the projects as you're attending Oxford University. What were you studying at Oxford?
I was still, well, I wanted to become a doctor. How I got in Oxford University was, I was living on the project before I moved to Oxford or just outside London to attend. So I'd come out the projects whilst attending. Okay. But I was hanging with a couple of friends trying to, better myself. And the guy was a Freemason, and he was 18 and I was 16, I think. And he kept coming out every week in this big lodge in Manchester, which is very secretive. It's not like over here, right? Believe it or not. Anyway, they said one night they got a big show on. Can you come down and play the organ? Because I'm a musician, they couldn't find an organist. They were all dying off because it was an old lodge. And that's how I got my feet in, because before I could go into the lodge, I had to pass some tests to get into the room itself to play the organ. And that's where it started. There was a lot of contacts there, big names, big contacts, affluent, powerful people. And that's how I got into Oxford University eventually. So wow. I went into Oxford University and wanted to become a doctor. It wasn't possible. They said I was turned up drunk. So they sent me to Trinity School, part of Oxford, and I read psychology.
So you studied psychology, and,
yes.
And is that what you graduated with?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
And at what point did you get your PhD, I'm assuming?
Yes. Yeah. I started in Manchester when I was at home, and I went to a college there. Then I went to Manchester University, eventually got my master's. And then I attended Oxford University. I must admit, it was the only place I found where other people drank like me. And because I was at the time at Abbey Road playing, it's the reason why I moved down to London. I got paid a fortune playing, as a session musician for the studio. So I used that money to put myself through school, which I knew when that was happening. I mean, I was doing sessions with Bowie, Queen, Elton John, all them great guys at the time, you know, and I knew quite then that my life would never be the same, and I'd kind of not made it as such, but I know that I'd got myself out of the project. And I look at the projects as a pile of people, and I'm trying to get away from that pile of people and be somebody different. Somebody's going to change the world.
Right.
You know, I thought it was going to be music. I really thought it was going to be music. However, it's not. It's what we do today. But yeah, that's how it all went down. But, you know, there was a lot of using and drinking at the studio, and a lot of using and drinking at school. And there was a lot of people paid off for homework that shouldn't have been done for me. And it just goes on and on. So, you know, I scraped through the PhD program, but I came out with a PhD. And
wow,
what do you do with a psychology PhD? You join the police force. And that's what I did. Don't know why. And again, I did, because most of the people in the lodge were high-ranking police officers.
Oh my gosh!
I know.
And this is still in England.
Oh yeah. And but they fired me after 3 or 4 months for being drunk every day. So, which they called me an alcoholic. You know, I was not bothered that he fired me. I was bothered that he called me an alcoholic, because I know what an alcoholic is. It's the guys with the big coats and the string and the fire and the 6-part harmonies. No, it's only on TV. I'm joking. They're getting nice and warm. But yeah, I mean, it was absolutely chaos. And it had only just begun. You know, the chaos that followed is just mind blowing. What I put people through and what I did. I mean, how I didn't I nearly killed my wife. I stabbed her 3 times one night because she won't let me finish my bottle of vodka.
Oh my God.
I know. I mean, and that's not it gets worse than that. Wow. You know, I mean, just the madness and insanity of alcoholism itself is mind blowing. And I just can't understand why this had got me so much. But I was still functioning at the time until, you know, eventually I lost $1 million house. I lost the children. The authorities took the children off me, and it just went downhill from there.
Look what Debbie Bettendorf says. OMG.
Oh, Debbie. Yeah, Debbie. You know, I'll tell you, Debbie, when, and thanks for the comment. What happened was, you know, all this had happened. And I came home. I stabbed my wife. I fled to Spain and wouldn't come back until they dropped charges. Back in England, it's the person that has the charge, not the police. Wow. If you drop charges of not murder, but attempted murder, anything like that, it gets dropped. And this was just a stab, and it wasn't anything really bad. I mean, she had to go to hospital, but, you know, she lost a lot of blood. But so when I came back, she decided that she's leaving. Well, I came home, and she had her bags packed and everything. So she said to me, I always remember this, Ken. She said, listen, I'll always love you till the day I die. Kids. And she took the children away. And the next day, I got into my attorney and said, get to the courts in the morning. I need my kids back. And I think the day after that, he brought my kids back, ages 1 and 3, my daughters, my 2 beautiful daughters. And as the door opened, I'm like, oh my goodness. You know, this is amazing. And I sat in front of, I told you it gets worse, Debbie. I sat in front of the TV, and I went into the kitchen, Ken. And I just thought to myself, wouldn't it be great if I just had 1 beer to celebrate the kids being there? 2 or 3 days later, when the police kicked the door down, Dad had been stunk and drunk for 3 days. Children not been fed or changed diapers for 2 days. They took the children. The police were there. The authorities were there. The children were taken out, and my 3-year-old was holding Mummy's hand as they walked down the path. And she turned around and she said 3 things. She said, Daddy, please don't go. And then she says, Daddy, please get better.
Wow.
And the last thing she says was, Daddy, please stop drinking.
Wow.
And
wow.
I couldn't do it. A few months after that, children had gone, wife had gone, Cars had gone, houses had gone, holiday house was gone. I went to my parents for a few days. They threw me out from friends to acquaintances, from acquaintances to the streets. And within that much of time, I'm sat on the streets thinking, where the hell did that just go wrong?
Wow. What year was this?
87, 88, 89. Can't really remember now, but it's some years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is there, was there a moment in there, in that everything that was happening, where you feel today that, okay, that was my rock bottom? That's where I hit the bottom.
My rock bottom, because when I was sat on the streets after everything I'd done, and I'm talking about falling on the children, leaving the children, toddlers in cinemas while daddy drives 6 miles for a drink, comes back, the police are there, and it terrified him. Absolutely. All that stuff I did, driving from London to Manchester, drinking a bottle of vodka while the 2 tots were in the back strapped to the car. All that stuff, didn't think I had a problem. Didn't think I was going through some bad stuff. 14 months on the streets, 14 months hurting people, knocking people out for money, fighting people every day to stay alive. One morning, woke up, the guy next to me on the bench, he was stabbed to death for his sneakers. I was fighting every day. 14 months it took before one day I'm walking down the back ends of Manchester where there's only factories. It was pouring down with rain. I dropped to my hands and knees and I was crying from my belly. The achy cry, guys, from your belly. And I looked up to the sky, and I don't know why to this day, but I said, if there's a God up there, I can't do this on my own anymore. Wow. 30 seconds later, a guy walked around the corner, missed his last bus home from a Bible study. He'd gone a different way home, a shortcut, come across me. He said, are you okay? I said, no, I'm dying. This is after 7 attempts of suicide. 2 of them, I actually died and they brought me back.
Wow.
And he says, come on, I'll take you home. I'm an alcoholic in recovery and I'm also a Christian. And right there is where it started.
Wow.
And if you think that's crazy, the story that follows next couple of days is even more crazy.
Wow. Well, I want to hear that. you can't leave me hanging there. Wow, man. So powerful. And
well,
here's the thing, Rob, I can relate to 100% of it.
Of course.
And people watching, the normal people, we'll call them, they don't get it. They can't relate to that. And I do. It's horrible, but I can relate to it. And I've been through a lot of it. I understand. You would think that being homeless on the streets is like, hey, here we are, unable to put a roof over our heads or eat, but somehow I'm always able to get a drink. I don't know how I pulled that off, but you would think that that's low enough, but it's not.
No, it's really not, and this again is why I'm so passionate about what we do today. We're the only company that has a 97% success rate because we're so passionate and we're so, we study neuroscience and stuff. But listen, Derek took me home and he said, hey, Rob, you can stay here for as long as you like, man. As long as you come to these 12-step meetings with me. Well, I've been there before, man. I hated their meetings, just war stories and bragging. But I went because of the bed for the night. Now, follow this carefully, guys. So I go to this meeting, and I'm sat in the meeting, and I'm thinking, can I get out of here to get a drink? Can I steal a drink? Couldn't do it. All eyes were on me. But a guy shared, and he said, my name's John, and I'm a recovered alcoholic. Now, the only reason I couldn't get out of that room is because the bathroom window was this big. Right. I had to climb through it, steal drink, climb back. I couldn't do it. I got my head through. I was so pissed and annoyed. It was unreal. I went to sit down. This guy said, John, a recovered alcoholic. And he had this book he was talking about. And, everything he said was true. And everyone kept looking around going, wow, I didn't know. So after he finished, I walked over and said, hey, John, would you be my sponsor? My name's Rob. And he said, no. And just before the whole world swallowed me, he said, but I will be your spiritual advisor for a period of 12 weeks. So what happened is he told me to go around to his apartment every Wednesday at 7 o'clock for 12 weeks. I left my house at 6. I walked there. I got to his house just before 7. We spent an hour together with the book, talking about God, spiritual beings, psychology, everything. And on on the last day of the 12 weeks, the same again on Wednesday, walk there, walk back. Last day there, I knew that I'd never drink or use again as long as I continued to do this real program. He showed me, but he told me things like your life's going to get better. You're going to carry a message. You're going to be taken away from, all this crazy stuff that I thought it was weird. So anyway, I get home next day because he said things had changed. And I'm like, John, I'm on a blow-up mattress at Derek's house.
Right.
Bays, nobody even knows I'm here. But
right.
so enough, he told me and he hugged me and I left him. And when I got home, I went to bed, got up next morning, and it was my job to clean the house. So I cleaned the house, and Derek comes home at lunchtime. And he says, hey, you never guess what? There's a part-time job going, cleaning floors. The guy's just quit. Like, okay. So I started that job, didn't think. Later it turned into a full-time job because I can make people laugh. Everybody seems to love me. And someone gave me a little mini car to go to work with. So it's like, wow, things have changed a little bit, So I was working with people and stuff like that, going to these meetings, and I got my first paycheck. Now, this guy taught me some crazy stuff, like the book and what it really meant. Oh, crazy stuff. But people started to get well from the first day we sat down with the book. Anyway, first paycheck comes, gets a little bit of money, goes to the gas station, buys him a little teddy bear and a card. And I wrote on the card, thank you, John, for introducing me to God because he took the compulsion away to drink. And I walked back to that man's house. I got there and knocked on the door. There was no answer. I knocked that loud that the right-hand person came out. He says, can I help you, love? And I said, yeah, where's John moved to? He looks empty. He said, John. I said, yeah, John. There's nobody in that apartment for 3 months that I know. So she looked a bit drunk. No, she looked a bit drunk. So I let her close the door and I knocked on the other side. And this guy came, big beefy guy. I said, can you tell me where John's moved to? He said, John. I said, yeah, John, the guy next door. He said, that's derelict. There's no one in that apartment for 12 months. I've been here for 4 years. There's been no one. I'm like, what? And you had the right place. So the next day I went round to the meeting and I saw the chairman I'd seen like some months ago. I said, hey, you remember me talking to John? He went, John. I'm like, John, the guy, we was over near the coffee machine. I asked him to sponsor me and we had a great talk. He said, Rob, you was over near the coffee machine speaking to yourself. We thought you was going crazy. Never found that man, Ken. Never found him. But when I work with alcoholics, they get well. So this psychology I have also a second PhD that I got a few years ago in behavioral science. The stuff that John taught me and the mission that I know how alcoholics think. I know the neuroscience behind alcoholics, and I know how to get them well is the 97, but it's actually 100, but nobody's going to believe us for the last 30 years. So we've kind of played it down, but it's unbelievable today. My life is absolutely amazing. And I only told that story, Ken, about 4 or 5 years ago.
Wow.
Who's going to believe a stupid story like that?
That this John guy didn't really exist, but he did.
Well, it's funny because when I started to get wealthy, I set out private investigators to find him.
Oh my God.
Nobody could ever find him. I got the best of the best, in Manchester to track this guy down, but nobody could ever track him down. So it took ages and ages before, I thought to myself, that must have been some kind of angel.
Wow. Had to have been.
I don't know why me, Ken. I've no idea.
Well, I do. I mean, you needed some kind of intervention that was providential, it sounds like, which, again, I can relate to all of, not that part, but it's incredible, man. And now you're changing the world.
Yeah, we like to think so. We run a multi-million-dollar company. There's only 7 of us. We have a few offices around the world. We do telehealth only, and we're back in the game. We're back helping people. We do a lot of stuff for charity. I give personally $150,000 every year back to alcoholics and addicts who are trying to get an apartment, trying to get a suit for a job, all that stuff. And we've just, or will be launching the Robb Kelly Foundation, because I'd like 100-bed rehab in San Antonio, free of charge for every person in San Antonio and around the world who's recovering, who wants to recover and can't afford it.
So let me ask a couple of questions. Like, number one, you started with a 12-step program. I started with I haven't been to a 12-step meeting in many years, and I'm not saying that to encourage anyone to not go to a 12-step meeting. I had a very big spiritual epiphany and awakening years ago, and it is what it is today. But do you encourage new people in recovery to go to those 12-step meetings?
Well, I definitely say it's a great start. You know, it's a great start, definitely. The only problem I find today is that a lot of 12-step meetings, I'd say about 90% out there, they're not the real deal. They're not real alcoholics. They're heavy drinkers. They don't need to do the program to go. So if you're going to go, it's a great start. Pick a great group, try a few, you know, grab that book, talk about in the meetings and read through it and see if it's for you. But if you're too psychologically damaged and you need a proper program to get you through the real deal, and then maybe go back there, that's what I do. I mean, I attend once a week. That book tells me to go to once a week to give back to the still suffering alcoholic, which, you know, that's what I do. Every Saturday morning, I go down and I do a meeting with the guys. And I love it, absolutely. But it's a great start. You know, I've seen a lot of people recover, including myself. I use the first edition of the big book, because it's public domain in my program. We definitely use that as part of it to connect you to, you know, a spiritual. Because if you don't get a spiritual connection, this is my professional opinion. If we don't get a spiritual connection of some sort, then you're not going to get well. From atheists to listening to this, I'm sorry. Maybe you can if you're a heavy drinker or, you know, you're heavy abusers, because there's a big difference between someone who abuses alcohol and the alcoholic. And people don't realize this. There's a fine line for the layman, but there's a huge difference. Is one can stop when he wants to, or given the doctor's order to tell you to stop, the other cannot stop. When you are an alcoholic, and we're born this way, check back 3 generations. If you can trace it in your back, you're born this way with a predisposition. You cannot recover without a real hardcore program, because you will always relapse. What we found since that book was wrote, which is a beautiful book, it should be in a medical, science library, the book, because it is far years before its time.
I agree.
But that book itself is phenomenal. But what we do is today's science, it kind of complements the book, but it gives us more in depth. But when they talk about a step 4 and 5, they're really talking about trauma. And trauma is the gateway drug. Trauma is the stuff that kills us. Alcohol has 1% to do with alcoholism, and the same with drugs. It's not the alcohol, you know? And that's when we get into the neuroscience of it, which we're so good about. I teach doctors, I teach at high profile universities to scholars about this, because this is our latest research. Which turns out to be true. You know, you change these things, you change the way you think. You know, if you change your mind, change neural pathways, which is a psychic change. You know, I'm going with this, Ken. Then things will start to happen, because if you use the same format and the same direct paths across the brain that lead into the basal ganglion, the repetition, strength, and confirms, you will always relapse.
Yeah. Wow. This is so powerful, and you know, maybe not everybody watching needs to hear this message, but I did hear you say on the doctors that if you were to ask the audience, is there anybody in the audience who knows someone or has been affected by alcohol or alcoholism, everybody would say no, and if they or say yes, and if they said no, then it's probably you.
So true.
So and I love that. I was like, he's right, because I have never met anyone who doesn't have somebody somewhere in their life or their path or journey that hasn't been touched by it in some way. So
yeah, definitely, and I think it's worth mentioning as well. You know that when we look at alcohol or drugs, for instance, but let's just say alcohol because you know I suffer from alcoholism. Our studies show in Richardson Hospital in Dallas, Texas, when we do some studies there on a Friday and Saturday night, 90% of people coming into the ER had drugs and alcohol to excess. Out of the 90%, something like 2% died that night. You know, in the hospital. Then deaths did not go down as alcoholism or drug addiction. They went down as liver failure, car accident, all that stuff. So the figures we're seeing right now, the World Health Organization wants us to believe are wrong. Addiction, alcohol and drugs kill more people than anything else on the planet times 100. That's how bad it is. 90% of heroin addicts that come to me started in the doctor's office. Try and figure that one out, guys. You know, oh yeah, that can't be true. Hey, listen, I don't mess around when it comes to stuff like this. We research and we research and we research. The only reason why we don't put white papers out there is when somebody comes up with such a mind-blowing, phenomenal, whatever, like the guy that had his water car or something, he goes missing. It's like, this is how strong we think about this. This is mind-blowing. It's like the pharmaceutical companies run this world. They don't want to see me. They don't want to hear about me. You know, me and the guy from Purdue had a big one-to-one on live air on TV, national TV. And the very next day after I'd finished with him, they filed for bankruptcy. Now, there must have been a lot of other things as well, but it's funny that I interviewed one of the main guys, you know, on a show, and I wasn't having it. I wasn't having the BS that he came up with because we're killing our future. We're killing our people now. The housewives, the gentlemen, the good guys and the bad guys that come to us that are going to die because they can't stop coming off heroin is absolutely disgraceful.
And I think it's worth mentioning. I've, you know, in the program, I sponsored, I don't even know how many different people over the years, but, you know, I remember a kid that was a self-proclaimed atheist. And he said, I can't believe in a higher power. I'm like, dude, logically look at this. Like, if you're your higher power, you're so screwed. Yeah. Like, your best thinking got you a seat in AA and your car crashed into a tree. Like, think about that. Really think about that. But the heroin addicts, and I know you've seen it on a much greater scale than I have, but I have seen so many heroin addicts sit in AA meetings and not recover and die. And it is so freaking addictive, and people don't understand how, I mean, that's the real epidemic or pandemic in this world is heroin addiction. And now meth is so huge. And what can be done? What, in your opinion, Dr. Robb, what can be done to circumvent some of this before the person becomes addicted?
Education. We're missing education. Education about what the drug does. I mean, it's great that I mean, people love it. Okay, we're going to legalize cannabis. I love that. Legalize cannabis. I've never seen anybody use cannabis, stab somebody or cause them. Great. But tell them what it does to the body. Right. Don't just legalize it. You know, go into what heroin is, go into exactly what drugs do, go into the heritage, go into the trauma cause, educate people in the area so that we're aware and we can have a choice. Because when I go to the doctor and he goes, hey, Rob, listen, take these painkillers, you'll be okay. And I have an addictive personality, right, or I'm a mom at home who's a great housewife, but I clean the house every day because I have addictive personality and I take them drugs. And all of a sudden he cuts me off and I go to the streets. People don't know this. Oh, I tell you what, you know what they used to say to me, Ken, why don't you stop just for your kids? Well, I'll tell you why, guys. Alcoholism is not a choice. Heavy drinking is, and abusing alcohol. But at a certain point, the hypothalamus in the brain is the part of the brain, it's a survival instinct. We're born with it. Okay. What happens is it tells us to drink water and eat food to survive, period. That's the hypothalamus job. At some point, when we have the disease of alcoholism, we're born this way, it turns around and it tells the alcoholic to drink alcohol only. That's why people can go days or weeks without food or water. They just need alcohol. So we have a biochemical reaction and a brain disease going on, which affects the central nervous system, which then becomes an addictive nature. And all of a sudden we want to die because we can't live with alcohol or drugs and we can't live without it. When I tried to commit suicide, I wanted to die because I was at that point that I can't do this anymore, you know, and I would try all sorts. And, you know, they brought me back to life. And I stood on a huge 25-story building and downed a bottle of vodka and fell back, not forward. And it's just crazy. But you get to that point, and I always say to people this, when I was on the streets, it wasn't hell, but I could sure see it from where I was. It's the madness, torture, twisted insanity of the disease. You know, now the housewives that go and get the drugs and get hooked on heroin, they're not alcoholics. They don't have that mind. But once you become hooked on heroin, you present the same. You're done. You're absolutely done. And where's the money being produced for these treatment centers? Because when you go into a treatment center, not all treatment centers, but, you know, we have great ones we work with, but you go into some and they're taking little Johnny in for his 5th time, charging him $30,000 a month. Come on. How the hell do you sleep at night? We have an epidemic. We need to talk about it. We need national news. We need the government to start talking about it. We need the police educated. We need doctors and nurses educated. We need the world. People used to step over me and throw diapers at me, full diapers, and spit on me on the ground while I was unconscious. People didn't even look at me. They hated me. People would look disdain at me. They'd throw crap at me all the time. I was the guy that saved a few people's lives for those people that threw crap at me. You never know. You can turn a life round. Anybody out there, unless you have a brain injury, anybody with an addiction, unless fentanyl and crack are there to the highest form, can recover from this BS that we're going through. But it's just knowledge. The reason why we know so much is there's no money in recovery research. No, why would everybody want to know? Let's give them pills, get them hooked, give them pills. That's all they want. Sell more alcohol. The tax on alcohol alone in America is mind-blowing. It's billions and billions of dollars. Nobody wants to stop that. Nope. So what do? We hush it up. We don't really say anything. We misdiagnose as they go into hospitals, you know. We fill beds up at treatment centers and it goes round and round and round and round. I've seen 8,000 patients over the last 30 years.
Wow.
A 97% success rate. Don't tell me that you can't recover. I've worked with the biggest movie stars who became the movie stars because I've worked with them. The biggest musicians, footballers, MPs, prime ministers, everything you can imagine. I've been everywhere just to show people they can recover. But I'm one person, Ken.
Yeah.
With maybe 30 people around me who live the dream like me, who know that we can save people. And I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop. And I'm not going to stop being controversial.
Yep.
I'm not going to stop being quiet. And you look here, I'm cursed on this show yet. I get so, you know, away with it. And I get really excited about it because there is a solution.
Hey, I'm a recovered alcoholic. Cursing's not going to offend me, man. I'm from Ohio, where AA originated in Akron, and so there is a tendency of being a ridiculous amount of recovering alcoholics there. I do think that because when you look at just going to AA alone, it's a very, very, very small percentage of people who actually recover. And I know, you know, that you're obviously more qualified than I am, but you know, for somebody that may be listening or watching, that they're struggling, or they have a loved one that's struggling, what's the next step for them? How do they, because Rob, I look at my moment of clarity, surrender, and I think, even though I don't think that God plays favorites, I don't think God's like that. It had to be providential for me. Like I don't, because I couldn't stop, and then all of a sudden this big thing occurred, and it was just in me. It wasn't like I did something huge. What is the next step for somebody struggling?
I think again is go, and listen, guys. I love things like AA and stuff like that. I love it. I think they're powerful. I think the program's solid, but it's run by idiots these days who are not really alcoholics. They're not really going to die if they relapse. So love it. Find yourself a great group. Get in touch with a therapist. Get in touch with a doctor. Start dialogue with somebody. Because this disease will creep up on you. And even, when you abuse alcohol, it's the same as alcoholism. There's a fine line, but it's the same. It'll still kill you. It'll grip you. It'll take it over. Your kids will go. Your house will go. Everything will go. So start that dialogue. And again, what I'm going to do on this show is I'm going to give my personal cell phone out, because if you're really struggling, guys, and you're at that place where I was, you're at that place where you've got nowhere to turn. You don't know what to do. Your life's just collapsed on you. You can't stop drinking. I want you to call me, because I'm going to give you a 15-minute pep talk that'll change your life. And I'm going to give you some contacts that we can start moving this forward. And if the 15-minute pep talk doesn't change your life, I'm going to send you $100. We're in this together. And people think you're crazy doing that. No, I'm not. Wow. The minute I turn, no matter how much money I've got, the minute I turn back on the trenches, I'm done.
Yep.
I'm also going, drink or something, and I've seen you on TV. I've seen, listen, it pays the mortgage and it keeps my wife happy. My job, trenches. My God, the guy in a 1-bedroom apartment right now who's got a razor blade sat on the floor going, I can't do it anymore. You better text me. Because I'd rather spend 15 minutes with you than hear of your suicide next week.
Wow. So powerful. Real quick, and I know we're coming to an end here shortly, but you got sober in the UK and you don't live in the UK anymore. Where we didn't talk about that transition. What brought you to the United States?
So when the internet first came out, I was on the internet on a chat room. I saw a Christian chat room and got chatting to this lady who was a big member of a church in Plano in Texas. Anyway, they asked me to come over here to do some seminars with the youth ministry. I can see you know which one this is, Ken. The youth ministry for 2 weeks. That's only. They paid for everything and accommodation. I stayed at this lady's house. Wow. And, I'd come over and I was so excited, and some crazy things happened there. Like my passport had expired and, it came in 3 days instead of 3 months. I mean, just crazy stuff. Anyway, I came over here for 2 weeks with my little bag and my 200 pounds because I just loved this big America. I've never been here before. Yeah. And never went back home again.
Really?
The lady that picked me up from the airport, from the church, became my wife. And I put in for my immigration straight away. And I voluntarily worked and I helped people. I did book studies and, I started working free of charge for the first 5 years I was in this country, just helping people traveling. We used to have a van. We'd travel around to help people. We'd take people back to our house. We started to get a gathering of people around us that were like-minded and just loved what I did. And they would escort us and it was just this phenomenal thing that started to happen. But it was never meant to be.
Wow.
There was no intent whatsoever to come here.
It was meant to be. I'm sorry. The only time I've ever disagreed with anybody, I think it was meant to be. Wow. Such a powerful, powerful story. And I really, I hope that everybody watching has, number one, shared this out with their friends on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and LinkedIn, everywhere that we're live. Um, Robb, you are an amazing, and I know you probably don't take a lot of credit for it, but I think you're an absolutely amazing human being. And I'm going to drive down to San Antonio and take you to lunch one of these days.
Oh, be beautiful.
I mean, we're neighbors.
Yes, we are, definitely are. It's
Well,
crazy.
and look, do you know this guy? Do you know Tom Chenault?
Yeah, Tom. Hey, Tom. Good to see you, man. Yeah, we just become friends about 3 weeks ago. He's my guy. I just recovered from COVID, though. COVID. It nearly killed me. Yeah, it's my first day up today, so I've not spoke to Tom for about 10 days now, but I'll text you later, Tom. Thank you, man. Yeah, he's a great guy.
Tom is an amazing guy. Amazing guy that does a lot for recovery. So robbkelly.com. Is there any other way, or how would people follow you, get in touch with you?
Yeah, just Dr. Robb Kelly on any search engine or all the platforms are there. Just search on there. There's loads of links on the website, robbkelly.com. And there's also a thing on there. It's a little book, and the book's called Daddy, Please Stop Drinking. And it was what my daughter last said to me. So just quickly, my daughter, and the youngest daughter I've never seen since, 30 odd years ago, never seen her. But 2 or 3 years ago, my daughter, my eldest daughter, I was getting most like these things. I've just got COVID, so bear with me. Got in touch with me on Facebook Messenger. In the middle of the night, bing. Oh my God, it's my daughter, Charlie. So we flew over there on the red eye. We got there. We opened the door. Can you imagine all the stuff I've done in the past, all the guilt, the shame?
Yeah.
We hugged. And then she took me into a living room and she handed me my 3-month-old granddaughter. Now, that's pretty good, yeah. She, as of about a year ago, became my head therapist in my Manchester, UK office.
Oh my God.
So the book was kind of dedicated to her. It's Daddy, Please Stop Drinking, Amazon and everything. The only reason why I mention it is, you hear it sometimes, you go, oh, the book, all the profits go there. That means after everybody's taken the part, $9, every single dime of that $9 goes back out to the community to help alcoholics, addicts, depression guys, all that stuff. Every single dime. And listen, again, I'm a straight up guy. If you get it and think, it's crap, I'll refund your money. Just pass it on to somebody else that you want to do. That's all. And lastly, but not leastly, I'd say if you're the guy sat at home, 214-600-0210 is my personal cell phone number. If you're up for a 10 or 15-minute pep talk, I'm your guy.
What is it again? 214-600-0210. Wow.
And we can chat and do anything you want. I'm in the trenches. I love Tom. He's in the trenches as well. I love you, Ken. You're in the trenches. And I want to build my network up. I want to build my growth up now in San Antonio because, there's a lot of good guys out there that touch my heart and vice versa. So, yeah, just doing what I got. We love what we do because we do what we love. That's the bottom line, I think.
Amen. It's the truth. It's the truth. I'm always, for those watching that aren't familiar with AA, and, there's a part in there that talks about, keeping things anonymous and, with press and all of that. But here's the thing, man, for me, and I think that means more about not saying, hey, I know this guy that I saw at a meeting, for me, I'm very, very open and transparent. I always have been, because if I can impact one person,
yes,
one person, and I've had many people reach out of the thousands of live streams I've done. I've had many people reach out and say, hey, man, I love your story. I need help.
And that ripple effect as well. If you're, everybody needs to be a leader in today's world, especially in the addiction industry, or somebody who's suffering from depression or whatever it may be. Somebody needs a leader. You can come out from experience you've had. My experience was horrible, but I turned it into my greatest asset going forward and people can actually stand up and identify with that. So what we look at is my word going to do anything? Well, let me try this next time you're out and about. If you're in a built-up area with people, spot somebody with nice sneakers on, and as they walk past you, go, "Hey man, nice sneakers," and then walk past him and turn around and watch him. He'll look down at his sneakers 2 or 3 times. So you've affected him. You can bet when he goes home to his partner, he's in a good mood. Now she's in a good mood. Now mother-in-law calls because she's in a good, and he just goes on and on. I just said a few words. So don't anybody thinking, well, I can't really make a difference. Everybody makes a difference. Everybody can save a life. If you're not changing the world, what the fuck are you doing? Just one curse word. Sorry, Ken. What are you doing? You know, oh, well, I can't. Yeah, you can. Don't tell me you can't. Don't even go there, you know, that you can't do it. They used to say to me, you know, yeah, I can say you can do anything you want. Well, I can't be president of the United States. We had a business owner in the country, okay? Don't tell me you can't do anything that you want to do. The mind is phenomenal. Neuroscience tells us today in quantum physics that we can do anything we put our mind, anything we can put our mind to. Changing lives on a daily basis is the best wage packet I ever get. You know, to watch somebody smile, to watch families get together, to reunite families, to see the light coming in somebody's face is something you must not miss, guys. And you know, you listen at home, if you think you've jumped in there by mistake, you are, oh, no way. You're here for a reason. And that's because this show's speaking to you who can go on to help. I know I've helped millions of people with a ripple effect. Next, it could be you. Start with one person. He'll spread it to 3 or 4, 5 or 10, and it goes on and on and on.
Wow. And the entire church said amen.
Amen.
Wow. Dude, that is so powerful. So powerful. I really want to encourage everybody who's watching, listening, to please share this out. It's not a demand. It's a simple request. One thing that I've learned is the more that we give to others, the more we get in return, and which is everything you just said, really, you know. So share this out to everybody on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, wherever you are. Share this out so people can hear this powerful message, and you might be responsible for helping impact one person, saving one life. And make sure you go to robbkelly.com and follow him everywhere on all of his social media. Robb, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for coming on today.
No, thank you, Ken. Absolutely amazing. And I've got to tell you, I've probably done thousands and thousands of these, but this is one of the best shows I've done because I mean, most people I speak to who are presenting doesn't have that in-depth, you know, knowledge like me and you can connect on that level. I mean, I'm going to bring you down to San Antonio. I'll come up there because I think you're a great guy and the show's great. I love being on here. You have some great questions, just absolutely phenomenal. Big shout out to Dan. You said thanks, Rob. Thank you so much, Dan, for listening. Thank you once again, Tom. Thank you, all the guys listening. Thomas, thank you for your kind remarks, guys. And yeah, just stay blessed, guys. And remember that you really can do anything you want. And you know, the world is on offer to you. Just get the right help. If you want to call us, call us. We're never going to sell you anything. You have to earn our services, by the way. You can't just call and go, hey, I want to start you. It doesn't work like that. I forgot to tell you that. But you call us for information. My wife and my team will be here free of charge as long as you want, for as many hours as you want, getting you help, and it won't cost you a dime. It's as simple as that, because we're just here to help. Nobody goes broke by giving away. I'm giving my power and my heart to you guys. Have a blessed day. We'll see you soon.
Wow. Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Robb. Appreciate you. Hang tight with me. I'm here. I'm going to end the live stream. Thank you to everybody who shared this out and has watched. And it's brilliant interview. Thank you so much. See you all later.